All right, I've been looking forward to this particular episode of Leaders Who Care for a while for so many reasons. Fellow Canadian, one of the best names ever that I think that I've heard, and a great smile and a million other things too. So, Indrani, welcome to the Leaders Who Care series.
Thanks so much, Mark. I'm thrilled to be here with you. And what an amazing series you have, and such wonderful people. But I love the focus. It's really fantastic.
Well, thanks for saying that. I appreciate that. It inspires me every time I speak. And best place to start would be if you could share a little bit about Indrani, not all the stuff you do, but a little bit about you, where you're from originally, where you are now could be a tough question because you are now. Tomorrow, you're not going to be the same place. So that type of thing and whatnot. And share with us to start what your name means. Talk about your name also.
Sure. Well, I'm Indrani Pal-Chaudhuri. Indrani is Queen of the Gods in India. She rides on a swan and throws down thunderbolts at the bad people. So I, have an aspirational goddess name. Pal-Chaudhuri is my family name, and that is a Zamindar name. So I come from a long 300-year history of being one of the biggest, grandest houses in Bengal and India. But for 300 years, no one worked in my family after they accumulated their wealth, and then they got to live rather decadent and studious, and other kind of pursuits were followed. But my dad was the first to work in 300 years, and the house is collapsing and trees growing out of it, and all kinds of great stuff. So I always like to say I'm making up for lost time.
I got it. So where is that house still there?
It is. I turned it into a school when I was 18. I went back to India and took my savings, and with my dad, we started a school called Shakti Regeneration Institute. That's the name now. The school itself is called the Shakti Empowerment Education for women and kids from some of the poorest families in the world. And it's been, for me, my greatest joy. So I like to start there because that's what gives me great happiness, is seeing those kids um, blossom and thrive, and the mothers as well in the women's empowerment part of the school.
Yeah, I can feel you on that because when I see kids I've coached and what they're doing and what they're achieving and who they are and their kids, it's like amazing. It's amazing. And it's interesting how parents, somewhat logically, you would think that parents would love their accomplishments as more than anybody, but generally parents or teachers or whatnot love the accomplishments of their kids and others and students way more than their own, which is good news, actually. So tell us a little bit about your Canadian roots.
Yeah, I'm Canadian. I'm British too. I'm actually in London right now. I am here for a few days, and I'm a citizen of the world. My stepfather was Jamaican, Rastafarian, so I claim multiple lineages. I have many family members from all over the world, and I feel very blessed to have to always be an outsider, but also to feel at home everywhere that I go.
I love that don't worry, be happy type of background, if you will, and stuff. Super cool. One of our founders is an astronaut of our firm, and he talks about how he's been in space, and the first time up there, even with all his training, he looked back at Earth and he said, "Wow," he couldn't even believe it. Like there's no strings holding it up, and different things like that is just there. And then he talks about it when he came back, and they had a little bit of a rough landing, he said, and he saw some grass and rocks and stuff, and he realized he was home. But then he realized he was in Kazakhstan, and home was actually Earth, which was amazing. And so I can get what you're saying about the global citizen and that maybe too much emphasis on borders, which is also we're going to have a lot of sequels here. I have a feeling with different topics. Do you have siblings?
No, I'm an only child, and yeah, I've been traveling since I was very young. I was an immigrant. Well, even before I became an immigrant, living in India, I lived in multiple worlds. My mother is English. My my father is Indian, and my mother volunteered with Mother Teresa and would bring me with her to translate from when I was the youngest age that I could just about speak. And so I was bridging different cultures and also really experiencing life through the lens of people in the home for the dying, and recognizing that the power of a few words of kindness could have for people who are facing the abyss and distraught. And as a small child, that was incredibly. It was a beautiful experience to get to spend those sacred moments with people.
Yeah, I
And
think,
yeah, it's just how I came on this journey. I then became an immigrant to Canada. Well, first to England and then to Canada. And growing up there, I really discovered just how powerful it is when all kinds of people come together um, and create. There's so many beautiful possibilities.
yeah, we'll talk about influencers later, but I can totally get how a smile even can make a huge difference to a person at the right time and in the right place. You talk a little bit about, when you were a kid and whatnot. What were you like as a kid and a teenager? Were you like Miss Exploration? Were you organizing events, reading, tech, music, dancing? What were you doing?
I was a total nerd. My parents were very, oh, sorry, helicopters passing.
Welcome to real life, man.
I'm quite close to the royal family, so they tend to fly by. Yeah, so when I was young, I was a total nerd. My parents really, as Indian families often do, they really valued education, and so that was my priority over everything else. And I loved it. I love my teachers. I love them so much that they're still my friends today. When I go to when I go back, we still hang out. And I wasn't so good with the other kids because I didn't understand, why they didn't want to, you know, study hard and learn everything that there was to learn. I was really, I would go through every book in the library, and that was a great joy for me. But also, I missed out on a lot. My parents were very opposed to pop culture. I didn't watch movies and TV, and I didn't listen to popular music. So a little later, when I became a photographer and when I was discovered by David Bowie, I'd never heard his music. Maybe in passing somewhere, but I really didn't know very much about the music world. And so, but I got to experience all of those artists through very fresh eyes.
And that's, I was going to say, I think sometimes having had the opportunity to meet some celebrities and some sports stars, they really appreciate somebody that doesn't come from being a fan, but is
Yeah.
actually just talking to them and and seeing their expression of what they're offering rather than, the maybe tainted or view that's been put on them from media or whatever about them. So what made you go into earning a degree in anthropology at Princeton, no less?
Well, I wanted to make my parents happy. And so we had a deal. They let me travel the world from when I was 15. I went to Tokyo and Milan. I became a model because I wanted to be a filmmaker and a photographer then, but I tried to get an internship and they laughed at me being too skinny to carry stuff. So they said, sit here and we'll take pictures of you. Maybe you'll learn something. I said, okay, fine. So I got to travel the world. I saved up my money, started the school in India, got my dad out of retirement to help me run it because I realized I couldn't manage it. And it had been his dream since his youth. So then I went to Princeton because I promised my parents I would go to college, and anthropology sounds like a science, so they were happy, and I was happy because I love people. Actually, it was a wonderful thing to study. I really got such a amazing insights into why people do the things they do, but also into this idea that anthropologists of the past used to study others and try to make some profound statements about what those people were like, and now we've really come to realize we can only really know about ourselves. So the lens of anthropology has been reversed to look at ourselves, because that's very often the area that we can be experts at. And in my case, since I'm all over the world, it's given me a really great way to a lens for seeing humanity and our common struggles and finding the commonalities between us, which far outweigh the differences.
Yeah, without a doubt. I found it interesting. A professor told me a long time ago that maybe the most important thing we'll get out of education is to see where things are derived from, and whether it's language or this, that, or the other, that gives you a sense of what's the foundation of it, and then go from there. So that's why I love the anthropology thing. I love the so I'm Jewish, and I think my mom was probably like your mom. I think there's a lot of commonalities between the Indian and the Jewish thing, about focusing on education and making deals to do stuff also. It's quite interesting, actually.
Yeah.
So I was supposed to be a sports broadcaster, but had to make a deal to go into accounting and could do something that's more realistic and then go from there. But sport broadcasting would have been actually kind of cool in a way. But that's why I have a podcast now, right? Uh,
Yeah, so you're pretty close. I mean, just chasing different things around, but we're still chasing. So
Always
yeah.
chasing. So did the model opportunity just happen? And tell us a little bit about that. One of my sons is a my two younger boys started as models. That part comes from my ex-wife. The acting out comes from me with my kids, but then yeah, but they learned a lot from the modeling and acting as well. Can you share? Did you learn from it?
I did. And I was incredibly shy, painfully shy. When I left India, when I was in India as a kid, I was extremely outgoing. I used to run around the class telling everyone, how they should do their homework better and stuff. Um, Weird kid. But when I became an immigrant, I became really, really just very like almost a recluse. Like I was so shy. I used to stutter. I used to whisper. It was weird. I had, they say that those kinds of big moves are very traumatizing in themselves. And then I had another really terrible experience. My best friend was murdered at 9 years old in Canada, and she was part Indigenous. And so that started me on the social justice path, really understanding that there was a systemic aspect to it, and that the police didn't look for her; they interrogated her father instead. Um, and they never found her killer. Anyway, I mentioned that because it really got me started down a path of taking responsibility. I've always felt that I needed to live the life that she might have if she had had the opportunity. um, Weird way to segue into modeling. But that opportunity came to me, and I decided to study everything there was about it. I went to the library, got all the modeling books, read from end to end, went to modeling school. I was really a nerd, so I approached it in that same way, very thoroughly. I got 98% on my written exam in modeling school, which
All
was
right.
completely useless. But I did learn a lot.
No.
I learned how to present myself, and I started to come out of my shell, and that was a really important process. Although modeling can make people very insecure as well. That contributed because no one wants to hear what you have to say. It's just like, just be quiet and do what you're told. It's changed a little since those days, but it was an amazing opportunity to learn from some of the greatest artists of our time, filmmakers, photographers, and being in the center of the action was very different than if you actually are an assistant where you're off on the side filling out forms or whatever when the decision making is being done. So it was an amazing experience. I learned how to live all around the world. I saved up a bunch of money, and I learned how I could be a force for good at a very young age. So I'm very grateful for that time. I also discovered a lot of the systemic challenges around the world that women face, especially young women that are unchaperoned and left to their own devices. And I survived, so yay!
Yeah, yay for all of us. Actually, it's interesting. I think you can either make a decision to learn from what you're doing at a particular time or not, and just to follow. And it's great to hear that it sounded like, with photography, with film, with meeting people like David Bowie and whatnot, your your eyes saw so many things and your heart felt so many things, and your brain learned so many things that I mean, from just going over some of the stuff, funny insights to cancer, icons to Asian artists that you worked with, and even the thing with Lindsay Lohan, where directing a film with Lindsay Lohan, and then Girl Rising, and so many things you've done. It had to form so many opinions, and that you then had to somehow mold to make the difference you want to make.
Yeah, well, I wanted to be a force for good. I started the school in India. I didn't know anything about fundraising. I was still very shy, so I worked my butt off while in college. I worked two jobs. I worked as a model and as a photographer, so that I could earn enough to keep the school going. Because I didn't realize how much it actually costs, and that you have to keep paying it. It's not a one
Oh
and
no, you
done
have
kind
to keep paying it. Oh no.
of. People say, "Oh, they founded something," and then they go off and do something else. But it's not like that. So I learned a lot about business. I learned a lot about myself and what I was good at and how I could monetize my abilities early. And then David Bowie discovered my work in an underground magazine, and for the next 10 years, he was effectively my mentor. He commissioned a number of projects, and then he commissioned my directorial debut for Valentine's Day, which was about a mass shooter, a mass school shooter, and with him playing the role of the killer. And that was a result of many amazing conversations we'd had. And of course, I shot a lot with his wife, Iman, who was the most incredible supermodel. So I learned so much through all of these collaborations. I helped to launch Beyonce's solo debut, Lady Gaga's early image, and then 300 brands. And I had my own production company. I still do. Double Exposure Studios had a show on Bravo called Double Exposure um, that showed the silly side of my life. And through that lens, actually, I saw myself. I really encourage everyone to have a camera follow you around for 6 months. It really gives you some amazing insights. And I decided that I was not being the person that I wanted to be. I was on the path, but I certainly was far from being there. And so I pivoted and really focused from there on really making the best use of my time for the good that I wanted to do for the world. And I'd always worked with nonprofits. I worked with 25 of them through that whole period. I uh, did some campaigns like Keep a Child Alive that raised billions of views and millions of dollars against to fight AIDS in Africa with antiretroviral treatment for families with AIDS. There are many projects like that I learned a great deal from as well. I put Kim Kardashian and a bunch of celebrities in coffins, and through that got people to pay attention to an issue which otherwise they were ignoring.
So it's fascinating because we started our firm on the premise that leaders and their organizations, their businesses will always do way better when they are doing good. Um, but it wasn't
Absolutely.
a common thing when we started, and for decades, God knows why it took so long. It seemed to be that you'd have to go work for a nonprofit for less money to make a difference, or work for a company and just make money and not care about anything. And highly not understandable. Even when I was a kid, I didn't understand that. How did how did you how did you come to the realization of working with people like Bowie and Beyonce and whatnot that you can actually make an economic and social impact at the same time?
Well, it was a slow process for sure. I mean, I was very successful as a photographer and as a filmmaker, commercial maker, um, and so it was hard to transition into the projects of real meaning that I wanted to focus on. But I realized that if I kept doing things that weren't I always say there was the doing good and the doing evil, that I was trying to balance both of those, working with companies that were causing the pollution that then I'm trying to solve on the other side with the nonprofits. And I came to realize that this just was not a good use of my time to pursue things that didn't give me joy. And life is short, and I've been really blessed to have the opportunity Oh, I'm so sorry. Sorry, let's start that bit again. I've
You're
just
not going to
been
tell
thinking,
us. You're not going to tell us who it was.
no, it's my alarm.
Oh, your alarm. Are we done?
Because I'm on so many different time zones. That's my wake up alarm from a couple of days ago. So
Okay, good.
sorry about that.
That's okay.
No, yeah, so recognizing that life is short, that's always been very apparent to me. I've worked with survivors of all kinds around the world in my vacation time when I was doing all the branding for all the L'Oreal's and Nike's and those kinds of companies. And through that experience, I spent 2 months in the Congo, for example, and uh, various places where I got to interview with child soldiers and former trafficking victims, and realizing just, anything can happen. Life is very short, and you got to do the most good you can, because the world, otherwise, the weight of the world for me is just too much. Um, and so I find a lot of joy in what I do, and also a lot of success. So now I've really focused on climate, and especially on ecosystems preservation. I came to realize from my school in India that over the 25 years that it's been graduating students, that their outcomes have actually been declining, even though India's outcomes as a whole are improving dramatically. And that's really to do with climate and specifically ecosystems collapse. So those who are the poorest, who depend the most on agriculture and on being able to live in a little mud hut by the river, they are affected disproportionately, and hundreds of thousands are already losing their lives because of it, and we just don't report on it appropriately in the media. Unfortunately, just like my friend at 9 years old, if you're not a blonde mainstream society kid, people might not care as much if you disappear. So I care, and I'm looking at how we can create the structural changes so that we don't all go the way of the dodo, because that's really what's on the charts right now.
Dodo is an interesting one to pick, I guess. There's a
Yeah.
there's a show I just watched from what's her name, Shonda Rhimes or that she's a private detective. Somebody died in the residence, the White House, and she believes in birds and how birds detect things and find things and have an intuition as to where they're going or why they're going and whatnot. And that's how she devised a plan to find out who murdered this person in the White House. Sounds like a silly movie, but it's brilliant in how they compare it to the instinct of birds. Um, just thought I'd throw that in there because I found it
There's
fascinating.
an amazing example of the intelligence of the animal kingdom. I've never heard that one, but yes, I've been really blessed working with indigenous communities around the world. I've learned a lot from them about how to listen to nature, and really working with some of the greatest scientists of the world as well, Nobel Prize winners who are very much aligned with that indigenous perspective of recognizing that we have limited resources. We know this from economics. There's only so much. So you have supply and demand, and you have a set of resources, and once they're gone, then we're gone. And people seem to be somehow missing that part of the equation. I've met with a lot of businesses that you look at their 10-year plan, and they don't have ecosystems collapse in there. They don't have even climate change in there, which is much more talked about. And they don't have AI. We're most people won't have jobs. Most people won't have things to eat. And there's a lot of challenges coming if we don't pay attention. And we have all the tools, we have all the resources to be able to solve these challenges, but we just have to focus our energies on that. And so I believe in leading by example. So I founded a company called Open Origin, that does green energy, green ammonia, and entirely sustainable supercomputing, so that we can do as much AI as we want, solve all the world's grand challenges, and not destroy the world in the process with our energy consumption.
Yeah, I love it. I also love having this conversation with you because it reminds me of Jay Leno talking to Robin Williams, and all he would have to say was, "Hey, Robin," and then Robin just went for it and did it, and didn't have thing. So this is my best conversation ever, actually, and that's a compliment. In doing that, there is a reason we started Leaders Who Care, and it really relates to what you're talking about. We thought that the business leaders absolutely do have to care, and it's actually good for their business to care. They're so tied up in quarterly reports, and a lot of them wish they could have time to care actually, but they don't because they got to figure out the financial reporting for the third quarter and then for whatever quarter, and then before that's even over, they're starting on the next one. And and I've had some really interesting conversations with leaders about how they feel the most effective and the most joyful in what they're doing when they can actually be emotional and be vulnerable and not having to know everything and actually trust other people to do stuff, and they rise to the top in accomplishing things. And I think like Open Origin, or as you probably meet so many other innovators and entrepreneurs that are creating amazing stuff that can be good for business and impact, at the same time, that we have to keep encouraging and promoting. You've been involved with companies like Neuralign as well,
Yeah.
and a whole bunch of nonprofits. It's interesting some of your journey. I got offered way back my dream job to work for a pro hockey team way back, and at the same time I got offered a job at a global nonprofit leadership development organization at way less money. Moved to the States, which I was very patriotic Canadian, actually still am, and whatnot. And the only person that told me to take that job was the president of the pro hockey team that offered me the other job. He said, "It's not about the money will come. You're going to meet people from around the world." Da, 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 da. And he was right. I did, and it turned out well. And I'd like to share a conversation about when you say with Open Origin and a lot of people that are going to be laid off, and so on. We're talking to a lot of executives, and get your thoughts on this. We're talking to a lot of executives right now, but the mindset change about they're going to make millions more by layoffs and less healthcare costs. They can upskill some employees with the money they made if they want to, but there's still going to be a lot of people maybe not upskilled. And what are they going to do? And they might have to go on unemployment insurance. They won't have healthcare, so they'll get sick. Or if they don't have money for food, I don't care what family you're from, you'll steal food to get it. And the conversations we've been having of can the leaders of businesses keep them on salary and get away from whatever the titles we call it, universal income or socialism versus capitalism, get rid of all the titles and maybe keep them on salary to do great work in the community, like teaching, like caregiving, like planting gardens in every school across the countries or whatever it may be, parks, and whatnot. Because if they don't, their taxes will probably go up anyways to pay for the unemployment and all the stuff that's going on. The question is, could that ever happen? The mindset change for business leaders to do that. What do you think?
I think that we have to have a major mindset change. That's what I'm working on. So the film that I'm working on called The Regeneration Generation is all about that. It's shifting consciousness from extractive to regenerative approaches. And it started as a focus on the environment, on ecosystems collapse, living within our means in that way. But then I came to realize through these interviews, through talking to amazing economists and indigenous thought leaders, artists, and people of all different kinds, that really it extends far beyond just this question of nature. And I say just, I mean, nature is, we are nature. It's essential to everything we do. But when we look at economies and we look at jobs, we look at the ways that we value our time. What my Indigenous partners have helped me to see is that the role of money, this tool that humanity has chosen to prioritize over just about everything else, it's meant to be a useful tool. It's meant to help us, and it's meant to help us to be in balance with one another. And right now our relation to it has become really unhealthy. We look at the flows of capital and we look at the stock market and these forces as though they're forces of nature, but they're not. They're just our agreements amongst each other that this is how we're going to value things. We look at rich countries and poor countries. They're not actually that way aligned. Many of the poor countries should be the richest countries because they have way more minerals, way more wealth, way more people, so they have a lot of resources, whereas other countries that have dominated them historically have set up deals whereby they take those resources and then give them very little back in exchange.
Right.
So these are all decisions that we've made, and we continue to make them on a, every meeting we do, every convention, where we're fine tuning those relationships. But ultimately, we can't live out of harmony when our world is collapsing around us. So what we've all, or at least I believe in studying history and looking at what happens when the people are not taken care of, and it's not good for those who are responsible. So we have a choice between making change in an effective and productive way that's inclusive of the working communities, that's inclusive of other countries who are producing a lot of our products. And until we do that, I think we're going to have some very turbulent times. So when I talk about AI taking everyone's jobs, it's not a fear thing. It's not a threat.
Right.
It's simply the reality, and it's exciting though, because what humanity has done each time we come up with a new technology. I mean, people were so worried about factories. People were worried about cars. They were saying, "Oh my God, what's going to happen to the horse buggy drivers?"
The horses, by the way, the horses were cheering, by the way, back then.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I mean, change is we're a brilliant species that's able to come up with these things. So we'll come up with solutions. There will be other ways in a post-work world. Can you imagine? I mean, we could all spend our time creating art or, doing wonderful things. There's all kinds of
Yeah.
possibilities. It doesn't, just because things are changing, it doesn't mean that things will be dire. They're dire if we don't acknowledge the change, though. That's what happens. Then the system breaks. So you look back 300 years, there was no such thing as the kind of jobs that we take for granted now. So in human history, we've gone through many different ways of being. And I really believe AI, um, as much as it's a threat, it can provide those solutions as well. There's so many ways that we can improve our human capacity on this planet. We just have to create the right infrastructure so we're not hurting ourselves with the choices we're making.
Yeah, I think you're right on. It's the mindset we've been trying to talk. And it's interesting conversations talking to whichever executives you talk about. But I actually think AI might be the technology finally that can make communities and people happier than they've ever been. Because initially, internet and all that stuff was supposed to get rid of all the manual stuff and this and that and make us better. But we're working more, it seems, and we're less connected, even though we think we're more connected and da 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 and all that stuff. But I actually think AI can be the one that finally does it and maybe lets us be more people gather in the center of town to be together. More people, like it was supposed to be. More people sit at their front porch rather than alone in their backyard and talk to the people that are walking by their house and say hi and things of that nature that really made us happy, basically. So I'm there with you. The mindset, and if business can see it's actually a plus, and the community will have more money to buy their stuff, and they'll be happier, and they won't, and taxes won't go up, and da, 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 then let's get on with it. Let's make this happen, type of thing. You know,
Well,
um,
it's happening whether we want it or not. So um, I really think that it's I encourage everyone to have a more positive mindset. I mean, the number of talks I've been to where people are debating, should we try to stop AI? Should we have austerity? Austerity doesn't work well for people. When you tell them to have less of something, that's hard. But if you tell them if you remind them of what they're missing, like when we miss out on nature, when we destroy the nature around us, then we have a massive loss of quality of life. Like there are studies that show our levels of both mental health and physical health are directly related to the amount of time we spend in nature. It has such a strong impact that even the color green, just being surrounded by green walls, will improve someone's health than not having green walls, right? That's like we are wired. That's how we're built, and we all know that. As soon as we can afford it, we have a house in the country. We like to go on vacation in natural, beautiful places. We don't go we don't want to spend our lives all in boxes. So I think that when we talk about what you have to give up or sacrifice, it's a small price to pay. And the price shouldn't be the consumer that has to give up things. If we just allow our natural, our capitalist system to be a free flowing capitalism. We don't have subsidies on oil and gas, or we don't have subsidies on beef and things like that that are creating unnatural disbalances. I think our world would sort things out much quicker. So having government work with the realities of our world would certainly be a benefit to most people. Whether that's plausible right now or not. Different places are taking different approaches. I'm in Europe right now, and here there's a lot of innovation going on, but we're all trying to do the best we can, and so my approach is not to wait for governments to solve the problems, because that's not going to happen, but rather to look at how business can, because I've worked in philanthropy for 25 years and come to realize that it's very hard to scale up philanthropy sufficiently to
Right.
have those economies of scale to really solve the problems. It at best can be used as a catalytic form of financing, and then creating business models that build around the solution and prioritize people. That's what I'm excited about doing. That's what I'm doing with Open Origin, and also now with the Regeneration Generation, where we're creating financial structures to solve challenges like the Amazon that's being burned at a very rapid rate.
And I love what you're doing. And I think employees of companies more and more would love to participate also. And I do know there are leaders that kind of wish they could, but they're just strangled by the system right now. One of my favorite authors and favorite quote ever is Maya Angelou, where she says the most important thing is how you make people feel. It's not what they've said, not what they've done, but it's all about how you make them feel. Uh, and if you feel good, it's kind of like the Clairol commercial from way back. If you feel good, then you feel good, you look good, you feel great, and whatever it was, all that stuff. And that's all that people really want. Whether it's, I just came back from Saudi Arabia, where we're talking about ice hockey in Saudi Arabia and education when you're playing sports, and being happy and healthy and all that. And so people just want to be happy. And so if you give them a structure, like you say, to make that happen, and I think AI can actually do that. And then we can take care of Earth before we figure out what to do with Mars, and stuff, and whatever. We say in LA, that we keep having people want more, so we can do a sequel, and we think we may have to do multiple sequels, which will let me see you more that way also. So that would be pretty cool. And but what would you like to share, like right now, as a final comment, if you will, about what's most important for people to know about right now?
Well, I'm working on this project, the Regeneration Generation, and it's really highlighting those companies, individuals, countries that are doing extraordinary work for the green transition. And it's made me very excited, very hopeful. When I really started this process, I was kind of terrified, and I know a lot of people are really afraid. I had a dinner with Mark Benioff of Salesforce, where he went around the room of 20 CEOs of Europe and asked each of them what they were doing for ecosystems. And people, some of them had answers. And then one elder gentleman started to cry. He had tears in his eyes, and he said, "My children are so mad at me. I don't know how to change my company. I don't know how to stop destroying our planet. This is all I've known how to do, and my shareholders won't allow me to have less of a profit. They're pushing for more growth." And it really made me realize that we're all in this together. We all need to take our responsibility in the worlds that we're in, whether you're a shareholder or a company CEO, or whatever you're doing. There are ways to improve, and we all need to do that, because the next generations are watching us, and we really want them to look on us as the ancestors that at least that's how I see it. I want to be a good ancestor, and I think that that's really the highest calling that we all have, to be good stewards of our planet, to be good ancestors for our future generations. And so, yeah, join me in the regeneration generation. Join us in open origin and in finding ways to use innovation and collaboration to solve our infrastructure challenges.
All right, I want to be a good ancestor too, no doubt about it. I kind of fibbed it. Now the last question in this part. A client told me back in 2021, he said, you know, Mark, the year 2020, COVID and all that, was the year that flew by slowly. And I,
Mm.
I got it. And now we sometimes figure it feels like it was yesterday and also years ago at the same time. With all that's happened, we're in 2025 already. What are you most grateful for, and what are you most hopeful for?
I'm really grateful for all the people who are working to solve challenges that most people don't even realize. I'm grateful for millions of indigenous people who plant trees, who preserve the forests, not because they get paid for it. In fact, it costs them what little resources they have. But there are so many incredible humans that we don't know about that are doing wonderful things, and I'm really grateful to be on a mission to find those stories and to share them with the world, big and small. And I'm grateful that people are excited as well to listen, to learn. This is a time of great change, and that should be what gets everyone jumping out of bed in the morning. Like, today we're going to discover something new. And I don't know. For me, that's the greatest joy. So, and I'm grateful for people like you, Mark, who ask the difficult questions and who create space for answers from those who actually care um, about others, because that's to me what it's all about, to be human.
It is all about, well, I'm grateful that you are a new friend. I'm definitely grateful for that. And I'm grateful for that you are a leader who cares and show it like clearly all the time, which what's making me hopeful, at the same time. So way to go. Let's all be great ancestors. I think we may have a t-shirt logo coming up for that right now.
Great.
Let's all be great ancestors. And thanks for sharing on the Leaders Who Care series. And I look forward to more.
Thank you so much. Really lovely to get to spend this time with you.